Hi, I'm Chris Walker with Rio Products, here with another episode in our how-to series. Today's episode is all about how to locate rising fish in a river, and specifically the areas you want to concentrate on first. Now, it's important when you get to the river to have an idea of where to look, because there's lots of water that doesn't hold rising fish. So really, it's a good idea to concentrate on the areas that do. And there's three criteria that these areas tend to all have in common. The first one is you need some slower water or some slack water for fish to rest in while they feed. The second is you need cover so that the fish feel comfortable, that they're not susceptible to predation by birds or other animals. And the third is you need a concentration of food. So places where insects tend to pool up on the surface and cause fish to rise. So here I am standing in a really nice Riffle run area in the river. You can see there's a shallow ledge up here with some white water kind of pouring off the edge, and then a little deeper, slower section just downstream of it. And this area has all three of those criteria. In that deep water behind the ledge, you've got some slower areas where the fish will feel more at rest and they don't have to work so hard to stay in position. You've also got cover in the form of broken water on the surface. So because there is a riffle on the top of the water, it's harder to see in, and birds are not going to be able to see the fish quite as well. And third, this is a great spot to concentrate bugs because you have highly oxygenated shallow water coming over that edge where bugs like to emerge and return to the water to lay eggs as well. So this is a great idea of a place to start in a river. It's got all three of your key criteria to hold rising fish. Another spot where you might find these three things is on a bank. So next we'll go check out a bank where we're likely to see rising fish as well. Here we have a really nice bank which might also hold some rising fish. And it has all three elements we look for. First, there's some slow current in tight to the bank, and that's because there's friction between dry land and the current, and it actually slows the water down closer to shore. So that's a great spot for fish to rest. Second, there's a nice undercut on this bank. You can see the current has kind of eroded away the dirt and gravel that's underneath the roots of that grass. And that actually gives the fish an opportunity to get so close to the bank that they're almost underground. And they feel very safe in locations like that because they can't be seen by any predators overhead. The third reason I like this spot is because it will concentrate food for a couple of different reasons. First, if you have terrestrial insects on the bank, they fall in close to shore. So anything like a hopper or a beetle that's going to fall into the river, typically that happens close to shore, which makes that a good feeding live for the fish. Stoneflies also emerge on the bank. So if there is a stonefly hatch, there will be a lot of food close to shore for that reason. And actually my favorite feature of this spot is there's a bubble line running right along shore. You can kind of see those bubbles running right along the deepest, most undercut portion of that bank. And anytime you see a bubble line in a stream, that's an indication that anything floating on the surface of the river might concentrate in that area. So if you do have mayflies or caddis hatching, they tend to concentrate in that bubble line, and that'll offer those fish another food source as it runs down through there. So there you have it. That's why banks are a great spot to look in rivers for rising fish. The third type of water I like to target are flats. So let's go to a flat next and we'll check out that spot. So this is a really great example of a flat where we might expect to see some fish rising. And as you can see, all the way across the river, the current's relatively slow and the surface is relatively still. So it'd be very easy to spook fish here, so I won't even step in just yet. But this kind of water has all three characteristics we look for in dry fly areas as well. So as I said, the water's kind of slow. There's really nowhere out here that fish are going to have to fight a strong current. And even better, there's some weed beds out here and rocks kind of in the middle of the river that create more eddy lines and seams for those fish to tuck up behind and sit in really restful positions in order to feed. Second, there's a little bit of depth on this flat, and in particular, there's certain areas where there are divots and deeper sections, and that offers the fish some refuge from birds and other predators. But really the reason fish rise on flats like this is the abundance of food. Upstream from us a little ways, the river constricts, it gets a little bit narrower, and the water also gets shallower. And both of those things make the current speed up a little bit. So when you've got a little bit more current in shallower water, that's a perfect situation for bugs to emerge, particularly mayflies. So really what we're hoping to see is a good hatch of mayflies coming from upstream. In the faster water, they might be kind of spread out, but by the time they reach the flat, they'll sort of concentrate and the fish ought to come up and really start rising consistently. So what I'm gonna do is I'll hang out here and just kind of look around and see if we can identify a big fish. Because the water's so flat, it works to our advantage in that we can see fish from farther away. but obviously it's easy to spook them as well. So I'll just hang out for a few minutes on the bank, see if we can find a big fish and go work on him. So now that we've talked about a few areas where you're likely to find rising fish, we've actually spotted a couple risers here in the drop-off just behind this riffle. Now the couple that I've seen rise so far have been kind of splashy, and typically if a fish rises splashily, it's because it's a little bit smaller. Larger fish tend to have a slower, more confident rise form. There he is. All right. There we go. Pretty little rainbow. And there he's off. So, that was a great example of a fish sitting in the spot with all three criteria that you'd hope to see fish rising to naturals on the surface. He had some slower water in there, he had a broken surface to make him feel a little bit safer, and there were caddis coming down over him. So that's a great example of a riffle going into a drop-off. We also showed you banks where fish are likely to rise, as well as flats. So thanks for watching today's how-to episode. If you enjoyed this one, you can check out more on rioproducts.com. Thanks for watching.